Today, I would like to explain our initial framework, which will support a more detailed plan to safely and gradually move into a recovery phase of COVID-19. Our efforts will be informed by public health experts using Missouri-specific data. We must keep up our efforts to flatten the curve and reduce our cases of COVID-19. In good social distancing continues, we will see opportunities to reopen the state for business. Our plan will have two initial phases, which are intended to protect those most at risk of exposure to COVID-19 and return Missouri to a new normal. First, to protect our healthcare workers, first responders, and other direct care workers so that our most vulnerable citizens have access to the care they need. Second, strategically reopen businesses supported by testing data and insights from employers and employees. Our Show Me Strong recovery plan rests on four essential pillars. Number one, rapidly expanding testing capacity, including testing for those who are currently contagious and those who have developed immunity. Number two, expand our reserves of PPE by opening public and private supply chains and continuing to utilize Missouri businesses in that effort. Number three, continue to monitor and, if necessary, expand hospital and healthcare systems capacity, including alternate care facilities. And number four, improve our ability to predict potential outbreaks using Missouri's public health data. As I said, we will be following a data-driven approach that combines a number of sources on data specific to Missouri. This approach allows us to look at the evolving situation locally, regionally, and statewide. Localized data includes hospitalization of known and presumed COVID-19 cases, considering population density and mobility, lab testing results, healthcare facility capacity to treat COVID-19, including available hospital beds and ventilators. This data-driven approach incorporates the most up-to-date data from hospitals and other sources across the state. This work is being done by Missouri public health experts, healthcare providers, and research institutions. This approach will allow us to focus state resources, better contain the spread of COVID-19, and again, reopen Missouri. Now, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you for some questions today.
Okay, thank you, Governor. We have several questions today. First question is from Elizabeth Hoffman. She's KRCG 13. As the topic of reopening the state is examined, some would argue now is not the time to weaken current social distancing policies, while others say it is time to get our economy moving again. What are the key aspects you as governor must consider, and how do you differentiate between the vast economic and social differences of urban and rural Missouri?
I think, number one, you look at the data. What does it really show for the state of Missouri? And Missouri is such a diverse state, whether you go from the big urban areas to the rural areas, and you have to figure out what is the real data that it says. And the best thing we can do is reopen this state for everyone and be smart about it. Take our time reopening, make sure we get businesses back up and going, people back to work, and still protecting them for safety reasons. The number one issue we've got to put before everything else is the public safety. Are we protecting the people that's going to go back out? And are they going to feel safe to go back out? You know, as our wives, as our daughters, as our family members, no matter who you are you going to feel comfortable enough to go back out and feel safe when you go in the community? And we got to develop that trust with the public. And then the public, I think, is going to respond by going out and helping open up the economy.
All right, thank you, Governor. Two reporters have asked this question, Jeff Bernthal, Nexstar, and Lucas Geisler from ABC 17. What is being done to acquire more testing, and how will the distribution of that testing be prioritized?
Yeah, I think every day we're looking at ways to get more testing, and I think you're going to see testing jump up to a significant amount to where we're going to be able to do somewhere around 10,000 or better per day just in the near future. We want to double our capacity right now in the next week, and I think that's doable to do on that. And I think the testing portion of it is so important to get that done, because that's really going to give us the resources we need. I've been in contact with our federal delegation. Yesterday I was on the phone with all of our congressmen and our senators, and they assure me that these testing availability are coming. They think there's going to be more and more online by the end of the month. And when we are able to do that, I think we're going to be able to move forward much more quickly quicker than what we have been.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Kirk Erickson, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. President Trump has been questioned over his claim that he wields the power to reopen the country. In a similar vein, where is state law or the Constitution does it say you have the power to close all Missouri schools?
That's one that can be answered. It goes through the Department of Health is how you do that. If you're the governor of the state of Missouri and you want to close things down, you have the power to do that, the constitutional power to do that. But it would be through the Department of Health if he was going to shut it down. If that's the answer you're looking for as far as what gives the governor the power, the Department of Health falls under the governor's office, so it goes hand in hand.
Okay, so do you believe a local school district has a legal ability to ignore your announcement and reopen in the final month of the academic year?
Yeah, I think one thing you got to be clear here, it's not so much the governor as it is the Department of Health. And no, they can't ignore the Department of Health if they shut something down, nor any other facility can do that without certain challenges to be had to that.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Dick Aldrich, KJLU Radio News. The federal Paycheck Protection Plan is out of money. More people than ever before are filing unemployment claims. Missouri workers continue to get laid off. Does the unemployment insurance system in Missouri have enough reserves to ensure that everyone who applies can get assistance?
Yeah, I don't think so, not right now. I don't know that our reserves are capable of doing that all without some help. The frustrating part of it is we'll get by. I mean, we'll just have to make more withholds, or we'll have to cut other agencies or cut other funding. But the reality is we're hoping that the federal government kind of gets off their moves forward on their process to getting the money done and getting some of that relief there. But unemployment's going to be an issue. There's just record numbers of unemployment, but we're going to make sure people get money in their pocket and do everything we can within the powers of the state to do that.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Jack Sundrup, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. What is the governor's message for protesters who are scheduled to rally against his stay-at-home order at the Capitol on Tuesday?
If they want to come to the Capitol and they want to protest and they abide by the orders, that'll be fine to do that. They have every right to do that. Hopefully by today, hearing some of these news, I think one of the reasons we were wanting to be out in front today to be able to say, hey, this is how we're going to reopen the state of Missouri, is to give people a little certainty. People across the state of Missouri, the business people, and frankly, just people at home, everyday people out there that's maybe lost their job, to realize, hey, there is a date that we are going to reopen the state of Missouri, and we're going to move forward to that date. And I think that does give a little certainty to everybody.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Caitlin Chalhorn, the Missouri Times. The Missouri Department of Social Services is currently working on a waiver submission to the United States Department of Agriculture Food and Nutrition Service for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, online purchasing. The program would allow the individuals to order grocery for deliver or pickup online and purchase them using SNAP benefits. Is there any update on this waiver application?
I don't really know what the latest is on it. I think we're looking at all those waivers. Anything we can do to make it easier for people to get that, even in the SNAP arena where they can get that and get it home without being out, is something that's credible to us. And I think we're going to try to work with them as much as possible to get that done.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Jason Hancock, Kansas City Star. Governor Parson, this week's lawmakers, including Speaker Har, expressed concern about the state's participation in a CDC survey aimed at mapping the spread of COVID-19 because it relies on blood samples collected by the CDC without patient consent. The lawmakers argue this raises privacy concerns. Do you share these concerns?
I do not share that. No, I don't, because there's no ID to the samples that sit into CDC. So they have no idea whose blood that is or whatever samples they're getting. They don't know who it belongs to.
All right, thank you, Governor. These two questions are from John O'Sullivan, KMOV. Who in your administration was responsible for purchasing all those bad face masks from China, and why aren't you holding them accountable?
Well, I think we're holding everybody accountable, but the reality of it is this is going across the United States. I mean, the FBI is involved in this investigation. Our Attorney General's office will be involved with it. And it was just simply a matter of supplies coming in from foreign countries, which I said earlier, the one lesson we learned is don't be dependent on them. But, you know, see, it went through the SEMA channels of just ordering supply chains, and it went through a Missouri company. My understanding of it is it went through a Missouri company. They were just faulty masks. And people will have to be held accountable to that who had it. But there's going to be a process in place to do that. But again, that's a national-wide epidemic going. I know Cox South down in Springfield, Missouri had the same thing. They got some. I think the more important thing is to make sure that they are accurate when people are using them, that those tests are being run on them, and make sure that they're adequate for those people that have them on. But people are going to be held accountable. You know, you got cheated. It's what happened. Bottom line is you got cheated. Now you got to go after the people that were the bad actors, and we got to go after them. And Missouri will do that.
All right, he also asked a little bit about the testing. You say we need to test nearly 50,000 people a week in Missouri before we ease restrictions. We've barely tested that many in our past months. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're going to reach that level?
Well, number one, I give no indication of how many we had to test before we reopen. I want to clarify that. We're testing more every day. If you look back where everybody was a month ago and you try to compare them numbers again to where they are today, they're not even comparable numbers. Because today we know we're somewhere around, probably around 3,000 a day, around there, maybe a little more than that on the private sector. So doubling that, you know, what I said earlier, we're going to be able to do, and we're going to be able to accomplish that. But, you know, it's going to be some time before we get to those levels, but we will get to those levels. I'm confident of that. But again, trying to compare it to the first day when this took off and what kind of testings we did, what capability we had to do, to where we are today there's a vast difference.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Bridget Lavelle, KY3. Could you tell your audience what was discussed on your 2 o'clock phone call with the president that would affect people in Missouri?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was surprisingly enough, the president's talking about reopening the country. The same type of conversations we're having with everybody here in Missouri today that I'm having. I think you're going to hear the president talk about a lot of those same issues tonight as he addresses the nation. So I think the one thing we're all in agreement is I think a lot of states are in the same agreement. Look, we got to be looking at two fronts here. We got to be looking at COVID-19, but we also got to be looking at the economy and how do you do both of those at the same time. Again, trying to make sure everybody, that public safety is involved in that. And then how do you get people back to work? Because the truth is this virus is going to be around for several more months. People are going to continue to get sick. People are going to continue to die from this virus. But, you know, we got to make sure we get all the care we can to protect people and to be able to do that. But we also got to be able to open up the economy and do both at the same time.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Aviva, KCUR. Were you approached by the regional pact between Midwest governors to coordinate when and how to reopen sectors of the economy? And if so, why did you or did you not join?
First of all, I'm not aware of that, but you know, there's many ways they could contact the governor's office, but I'm not aware of. Look, we're in constant communication with the National Governors Association every week, the White House, with different governors across the state. I've been on phone calls with numerous governors across the state, kind of seeing what they're going to do. But there's no been lineup in any PAC that I know of. I'm not familiar with what the PAC is, you know. But the whole idea is, at the end of the day, I got to do what's right for Missouri. So, joining some group to say, hey, let's all do this the same way, it's a little different for Missouri because of the diverse. When you got St. Louis and Kansas City sitting out there, two huge metropolitan areas, and you got rural Missouri all over the state. So, you know, I got to look at Missouri and do what the right thing is for this state.
All right, thank you. This question is from, she's got a couple of questions. Jacqueline Driscoll from St. Louis Public Radio. Governor, what prompted you to revisit the stay-at-home order? And has there been any more positive cases than unexpected in Missouri?
You know, I think we're getting a good handle on where we're at now with statistical information that we finally got that was just strictly to do with Missouri. And I truly believe we're at the curve. And matter of fact, I'm optimistic to think we may be going past the curve and we're headed on the downward slope. And I say that, you know, cautiously, that we are to do that. But, you know, we look at that every day. I've said that all along. We look at data every day to see, okay, where are we going? What does the entire state look like when you divide it down into segments, when you divide it down into regions, and all parts of it? And you got to realize where your hot spots are and where people in the state do not have the problems that a lot of areas do. And you have to make the decision how to reopen the state. So we do that every day. The decision to move the date from the 24th and why we're going to the 3rd is simply to start preparing for opening up the state of Missouri. We want to open that up. We think by that time we're going to have a lot more data to be able to go out there and justify what we're doing and to make sure we're protecting people every day. But the whole idea is to make sure we got enough time to get people ready to go back into the workforce and allow people that opportunity.
All right, now I want to make sure this is clear. You've said you wanted to reopen the state in phases. Jacqueline asked, where and when does phase 1 begin?
May the 4th. May the 4th is when we're going to see the first phase, and people are going to go back to work on May the 4th.
All right, and her final question, Governor. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly announced yesterday she was extending the statewide stay-at-home order. She said she did this because the peak of the coronavirus for Kansas is expected later this month. What are health professionals telling you regarding the peak here in Missouri and when it's expected?
I think we're covering that right now. I think you're seeing the experts are talking about we're leveling off in the state. We're getting stable in different areas. If you look at Springfield, Missouri, if you look at Columbia, if you look at Kansas City, we all know that there's a stabling effect there, and we're starting to see that throughout the state. St. Louis is still a hot region, but even in St. Louis, you're starting to see that level off to a certain degree. And again, I think we're at that curve now, and I think you're going to see things getting better.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question is from Jacob Kurth, KSDK. The St. Louis Public School Districts want to start the 2021 school year on August the 4th, but Missouri schools aren't scheduled to start until August 24th. Does Governor Parson have any plans to ease up on school start dates if the state is reopened?
Right now, the schools are scheduled for August the 24th. We're going to be working with DESE from here on out, and we're going to work through all that together. Everybody's going to have their chance to have input, and then I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do what's best for the students of this state is what we're going to do. And that's how we're going to come up with when we're going to start school. So I think it's pretty premature right now to try to be setting a start date in August, although that discussion probably needs to be having in the near future. But again, we're not going to make a lot of changes for fall yet till we get a little bit more behind us here on where we're really at. Because I'm hoping by then it's not an issue, and I hope we're starting school in a normal time frame. I hope people are much more active this summer, and I think a lot of things, hopefully, will be getting back to some sort of normal.
All right, thank you, Governor. This question you've answered many times, but I'm going to ask it again. This is from Sebastian, KBIA. Does the governor believe wearing masks or face covering helps prevent the spread of COVID-19? And if so, why has he said he won't use them?
First of all, I think it's an individual's choice whether you wear a mask or not. If you believe that helps you, then I think you should wear a mask. If you don't want to be in places where people don't, then I wouldn't go there. But I think that's up to the individuals. What the CDC guidelines are basically saying, if you're in an area where you can't get the 6-foot distance, that's when they're recommending you wear a mask if you want to wear a mask. But nobody's telling people to wear a mask. That's everybody's individual choice and should be left that way for the individuals out there making those decisions.
All right, and the follow-up question, some workers at meat processing plants in the state aren't being provided masks by their employers. Does the governor believe they should be?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, but I mean, if those employees in a meat packing plant, I would definitely be encouraging the employers to make sure they have that availability if it's there, to make sure their employees can have that. And the ones that I do know of are doing that. If that's not happening, I would be welcome for somebody to kind of share that with me, that I know what the company is and everything. But I talk to my ag director all the time and to make sure those things are happening. But if that's not and people are forced to do that and they don't want to, then somebody ought to let us know and let us take a look at that.
All right, and we have two more questions for you, Governor. This one is from Philip Sitter, the Jefferson City News Tribune. Governor, are you and other state leaders developing criteria that could in the future help guide any necessary implementation of social distancing measures while also trying to minimize the kind of economic fallout that the state is seeing now? If so, what do you need on the medical front to make that possible?
Look, there's a lot of experts we're in contact with. Thankfully, I've been in contact with them every week on the infectious disease, along with the Missouri Hospital Association, different medical fields out there. But look, it's early on. We're all going to take a look back at this and see what we could do differently and how we do it better, and frankly, how we prepare for that next time. But right now, I think everybody is focusing on how do we deal with the issue at hand. All of those things will come. I think all of us are going to be working on that, trying to figure out how we curve that in the future to come, and we'll do that regardless whether it's COVID-19 or it's another virus. I think this experience will make us more prepared for when the day comes in a lot of different areas, and I'm confident Missouri will answer that call.
Okay, and the final question. You've answered this one before too, Governor, but just to reiterate your thoughts. Roger from KFVS TV. Part of getting our economy back to normal are elections, such as the municipal elections that have been delayed to June. What discussions have taken place about the future of elections in the state that take into consideration the health of the poll workers, the voters, the ability of all registered voters to vote, and the possibility of voting by mail or electronically?
Yeah. First of all, let me say the voting across the state of Missouri falls under the Secretary of State's guidelines, and I'm confident he's going to deal with those issues. The other thing I think is really important, what are the local levels seeing? How do they want to foresee those elections coming? And what are their recommendations, how we go vote safely? There'll be a lot of discussion about that. We're going to be open to what it is to make sure that people have a right to vote and they can get to vote. You know, by whatever means that is, as long as there's some sort of agreement with the local levels, the state, to see how we're going to move forward on voting. But look, they're going to get that figured out where people can go vote. I'm confident of that. I'm confident in the Secretary of State. I'm confident on the local levels. Nobody works any harder than those county clerks to make sure those elections go as smoothly as possible on the front lines.
All right, thank you, Governor.
Missouri is incredibly diverse, and our reopening efforts will be careful, they will be deliberate, and done in phases. The timing may not look the same in every community. Our hardest hit areas like St. Louis and Kansas City may take longer to fully recover. But we must be ready for a slow but steady road to recovery, with some sort of social distancing continue even as we begin to reopen the economy. I thank you again for your efforts, your sacrifice during this difficult time. I look forward to seeing Missourians safe, healthy, and back to work. Thank you, and God bless.